Man, we've got a great show for you today. We're going to be playing some hockey. We get to be Indiana Jones again. We get to play some classic N64 games. We're jumping into the boots of a Vault Hunter, and we find out what Nintendo's got in store for us. Welcome to Reviews on the Run. All right, I had a busy week playing all kinds of things. I was streaming pretty much every day this week, and I played a lot of cool stuff. Let's start with Borderlands 4, which I really had a fantastic time with. This is a beautiful game from Gearbox, really trying to correct some of the decisions and choices that they made with Borderlands 3, which went over the top, trying to really make us laugh, and it didn't succeed. It became kind of a numbing experience. Borderlands 4 is a lot more focused, a lot more sort of positioned to be straight ahead with its storytelling, introducing a bad guy named the Timekeeper. You start out the game escaping from a prison, and you choose a Vault Hunter, and you decide which path you're going to take. And of course, you've got to go and kill all kinds of goons and psychos and robots and monsters that are out to get you. And you are going to go into some vaults, and you're going to go out on all kinds of missions. What feels a little bit different here is the refinement in the world crafting. It really is a beautiful open space for you to go and explore, and you've got some different vehicles that you can hop into to help you get around a little bit faster. The world is enormous. The map is huge, and you're going to find stuff to do all over the place, but there are lots of stretches where it's a little devoid of life and a little devoid of interactive elements. So you're going to have some tedious repetition in some of the traveling. Thankfully, there's of course fast travel, and what you're also going to be doing is finding all kinds of resistance fighters and recruiting them and being recruited into alliances to help you stop the Timekeeper and his evil plans. Now, I haven't played tons and tons of the game yet. It just came out, and it's super fun. It's super rich, but I did find that it was missing some narrative direction in some of the places. You'd walk up to townspeople, they wouldn't say anything. You'd run into allies that were shooting at some of the same monsters that you are, but they would have no interaction with you. It was only at specific points where you're interacting with specific characters that you would sort of be fed along the story. You've got this little robot helper, which you tap up on the D-pad, and it sort of guides you on where to go. And so you're always sort of chasing a cursor instead of the world kind of guiding you in directions. And of course, there's a lot of exploration and discovery that you're going to find. It's one of those massive open world experiences. But I can tell you from what I've played, the hooks are definitely in. It is a vast, fun, and beautiful experience. And I haven't played as the other Vault Hunters, and I imagine the play is altered quite a bit. I also have not had time to play cooperatively yet, but from what I've explored of this new planet called Kairos, it is really cool, and I've been having a lot of fun. This is a solid new move for Borderlands, and I think it's worth checking out for sure. I can't really score the whole thing because I've got more to play, and I definitely do want to play it in co-op, but from what I've played so far, I had a big smile on my face. I'm going to give Borderlands 4 an 8 out of 10. I was also lucky enough to stream NHL 26 this week. EA Sports sent me out a code, and what I did is I played a whole bunch of games. I didn't get into Hockey Ultimate Team. I'm not into the card collecting. I'm not into the microtransaction stuff. So if that's your gameplay, that's the stuff that you love out of hockey, you know it's there. You can build your teams, and you can accentuate to your heart's content. What I wanted to check out was the core skating mechanics. There's a whole bunch of new buzzwords in terms of the AI on the ice and the animation systems and stuff. But what I can tell you from playing the game is that it just feels a lot more physical. It feels a lot more rooted. The goalies seem a lot more intelligent, so their animations as they reach for pucks and make crazy saves feel a lot more realistic. There are going to be some herky-jerky elements from time to time, and some of the fans and stuff that we see in the stands certainly don't look as fully realized as something you might see in NBA 2K26, but it still is a gorgeous-looking game, and I'm so thankful that EA Sports and EA Canada has been able to move away from making the game for PS4 and Xbox One. No shade to the Xbox One and PS4 players out there, but it's time for this team to kind of take the horsepower of the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, and presumably one day, it's sad that it's not this year, the Switch 2. The game is super fast and super fun to play. I wish the hits were bigger, I gotta be honest. I do feel like I want to slam into the other players and make it a little bit more arcadey. Of course, you can jump into the 1 versus 1 versus 1 mode, and that's fun and fast. Threes is also a lot of fun. I had a good time with the new Be a Pro mode, which tells the story a little bit differently and doesn't start in the pond setting that the previous few years of NHL has been. And I was really starting to groove with the new on the ice mechanics, the ability to kind of strafe left and right and lift the sticks and do the poke checks and win some of the face-offs, which is really challenging. As I was streaming the game, I had a lot of encouragement from folks in the chat telling me, look, it's like rock, paper, scissors. Don't worry too much if you're not nailing it. It makes all the difference when you do win those face-offs, though. Holy crap, it can really change the whole trajectory of the game. But I had so much fun playing NHL 26. I know there's a lot of hardcores out there that are going to find a lot of things to complain about and a lot of specifics that don't exactly correlate with what the real-life game delivers. But for a video game player like me that jumps around to so many different titles, I had so much fun playing this. Just like I had a lot of fun playing NBA 2K26. This is a blast. What I've played of NHL 26, I'm going to give an 8.5 out of 10 to. A little while ago, I reviewed Apple TV's show called Stick, and I said that there aren't too many movies on this platform that I'm a big fan of. Well, right after I said that, Spike Lee's movie called Highest to Lowest, starring the incredible Denzel Washington, was released, and I was so excited to see this movie. It's about a record executive who's sort of approaching potentially the end of his career, and he's got some big choices to make about what he wants to do with his life, and he makes some pretty dramatic decisions that impact the people around him, but then a crazy life situation takes root, and this record executive, played by Denzel Washington, has to figure out what to do. He's faced with a really tragic dilemma that he has to solve, and he's got good people around him. His best buddy and the guy that looks out for him, kind of a bodyguard type, is played by Jeffrey Wright, so it's incredible to see these titans, Denzel and Jeffrey Wright, on screen together. And I like the way that Spike Lee always crafts these incredible images of New York City. He's just a master at showing us his city, you know? He really loves to celebrate it. And there are some beautiful, expensive-looking drone shots and some really nice reflections coming off all these sky rises that we get to see, and there's lots of subway shots. It just is a really cool kind of trip to New York. But this movie's weird. It's a weird movie. It feels like it's trying to juggle a couple of different things and not feeling especially authentic in the way that it's presenting its drama. You're taken out by some of the decisions that people are making, and also the music in this movie is really distracting. It's beautiful work musically. It just doesn't fit stylistically with kind of the thriller elements that this movie is trying to paint for us. And it just felt silly and out of place, and my wife and I were looking at each other going, what the heck is going on? It reminded me of the crazy music in Eyes Wide Shut, to be honest, how much that music was a distraction from what was on screen in that film. It had that similar kind of thing. Still, I think Spike Lee is a genius. Of course, I adore Denzel Washington and Jeffrey Wright, and most of the performers in this film are pretty damn good. And there are moments of like real joy as you're watching this world be crafted for you, for sure. I just couldn't watch this movie and think that it sits nicely beside Mo Better Blues or Spike Lee's incredible Do the Right Thing, or Malcolm X that he also did with Denzel Washington. There's a whole bunch of other Spike Lee films that are just better crafted, more entertaining, more impactful. This one, sadly, a little forgettable, despite all the talent that's involved. I'm gonna give Highest to Lowest a 5.5 out of 10. Now, something really cool that I got to do this week is play some of my classic Nintendo 64 cartridges on my Polymega system. And Polymega, for those that don't know, is a multi-system device that allows you to play with the base unit, Sega CD, Sega Saturn, PlayStation, TurboGrafx CD, and Neo Geo CD. So it takes all of these disc-based consoles. That comes out of the box, but what they also have are these modules that you can click into place, and you can have access to your cartridge library. So we'll play NES cartridges, or Super Nintendo cartridges, or Sega Genesis cartridges. And in this case, I had a module called the Ultra module, which plays Nintendo 64 cartridges. Polymega sent this to me for me to review, and what I did is I brought out a stack of 10 Nintendo 64 games, some good, some really not so good, just to see how this machine would handle its compatibility and how the games felt and played. The other cool thing about all of these different modules, which are totally optional, each of the modules comes with a separate controller that's kind of an approximation of the classic classic console it's representing. So I have the Ultra module controller, and it's actually pretty solid. It kind of looks like a Sega Saturn N64 Fusion, and it's comfortable in the hand. I was playing for 4.5 hours, and I didn't have any issues with playing with this controller at all. And they really only make sense if you have physical media for each of these consoles. If you don't have that, there's lots of ways to play classic games these days. But if you have a big library that's sitting on the shelf and you want an easy way to play these games on your HD or 4K television set, that's what Polymega is all about. You can just plug in an HDMI cable and then pop in your cartridge or your disc and jump into some of these classic games. So what I did with these 10 classic N64 carts is I just popped them in. You can save them to the storage that's on Polymega and you can jump in. I had a couple of glitches along the way. One of them, sadly, was with the San Francisco Rush cartridge for N64, which was one of my favorite N64 games. I had to go back into the settings and put on the beta mode for the N64 emulation, and even then there was some flickering and some of the handling felt a little off, and it just didn't look that great. Another issue that I had was with Beetle Adventure Racing, where there was some glitching in some of the titles, and it also felt like some of the music was slipping out of place with the way that the game was being served to me, and I felt like maybe there's some streaming issues. Maybe that's something that needs to be addressed in a future update for the emulation for N64. But that kind of bummed me out a little bit too, because Beetle Adventure Racing is one of my favorite N64 games as well. I did have a lot of fun playing Buck Bumble again. That is a very cool idea where it's a shooter where you're playing a little bumblebee and you got to take care of all these nasty wasps and stuff. It has one of the coolest theme songs, which I can't play for you because I'll get a copyright strike, but it's a really cool track. I was grooving and everybody in the chat as I was streaming it was like, wow, this is so cool. So that was fun. Playing Superman 64 again in 2025, I don't recommend it. It's terrible. Wipeout 64 looked pretty damn good, and most of the other titles that I played actually handled really well. It was fantastic to play Blast Corps again. What an underappreciated gem that game is. I think this is a pretty cool device. Now, you already have to be invested in the Polymega infrastructure so you can get this module. I think if you've got an N64 library and you've got the Polymega system, the Ultra module makes so much sense. Of course, there are other options coming down the road. Analog has got the promised Analog 3D system, which is hardware emulation for the N64. That keeps getting delayed. And then there's Mod Retro that is doing an N64 update at some point down the road. None of this stuff is inexpensive, and that's one of the problems with bringing the classic machines to modern day. But man, it's fun. And great games are great forever. And it's really fun to go back in time and play some of these classics. So even though it's not perfect, I had a really good time playing around with this, and I've got more streaming to do. I'm gonna give the Ultra module for the Polymega an 8 out of 10. One of the most enjoyable things I've done in the last little while is put on my fedora and my khaki shirt, and I jumped into Indiana Jones and the Great Circle again, but this time was to play the Order of Giants DLC, which came with the deluxe edition of the game that I had, and I was able to jump right to it. You have to go to a specific place in the Vatican, and then you start on this new adventure where you're uncovering all kinds of secrets about this Order of Giants, and you are beating up on some fascists, which is always fun, and then you're beating up on some cultists, which is also in the world of Indiana Jones, a lot of fun. And of course, you're solving all kinds of puzzles, and there are secrets to uncover and things to pick up along the way, and lots of exploration and death traps, you know, all the indie staples. Then it culminates in a pretty crazy, over-the-top scenario, but we have seen that in Indiana Jones stories from time to time, so I wasn't too off-put by that. It just felt non-essential in the scope of the Great Circle. Like every moment in the Great Circle and why it was the best game, in my opinion, of 2024 kind of builds on each other, and it really has this fantastic climax. It's a wonderful game all the way along. It's got some slower parts and some faster parts, and it really was like a 20-hour Indiana Jones film. It was so beautifully made, and I feel like the Order of Giants, it sort of is like a little side diversion that you don't need to take if you don't. Like, it's really fun for people like me that will actually cosplay to play the freaking game. I had fun doing that, but I think if you want to hold off on this because it's a busy time in gaming right now, I think you're okay. It doesn't feel like you have have to play this if you love the Great Circle. That being said, I had a great time. I played through the whole thing. I played from start to finish with everybody watching me stream, and it was a damn good time. Still, not nearly as good as the core experience at all. I'm gonna give Indiana Jones and the Great Circle: The Order of Giants a 7.5 out of 10. Nintendo got us all up early to check out their Nintendo Direct, their 1-hour event with lots of reveals of Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2 games. First up, Nintendo spent a little time outlining some of the ways they're celebrating Super Mario Bros. 40th anniversary. Shigeru Miyamoto was on hand to talk about the additions to the Nintendo Museum. We got a teaser for the Super Mario Galaxy movie, which comes out in April. We're also going to be able to pick up the Switch ports of the Nintendo Wii classics, Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, together or separately, and they'll run great on Switch 2. There's a new Mario Tennis game called Mario Tennis Fever coming out February 12th, which looks like it's packed with features and looks like it's going to be pretty fun. There's a Nintendo Switch 2 version of Super Mario Bros. Wonder coming with a new area called Bella Bell Park and a focus on multiplayer content. There's an IRL talking flower on the way, which looks awesome. But the Mario Universe game that has me the most excited is Yoshi and the Mysterious Book, which looks so handmade and so beautiful. I can't wait to play this new game in the Yoshi series. What everybody wanted to know, of course, though, is when are we getting Metroid Prime 4 Beyond? And thankfully, we have an answer to that. December 4th. That's when it's coming out, December 4th, and I can't freaking wait. We also got a brief glimpse of the Samus bike, or the Metroid motorcycle. I want to know a lot more about this game, but I cannot wait for it. There was a ton of other stuff, but some highlights for me included seeing Resident Evil 7, 8, and 9 all running on Nintendo Switch 2. The DLC for Donkey Kong Bonanza is here already, and I've got it, and I'll be streaming that one very soon. There's a new Pokemon game that was shown off. It's called Pokepia, and it looks like it's a nice, cozy blend between Animal Crossing and Pokemon. Can't wait to play that one with my kid. But definitely the most surreal reveal was the Virtual Boy being added to the Nintendo Classics collection of consoles. And Nintendo's even gonna have a pricey Virtual Boy peripheral so that you can put that on the table and pop your Switch or Switch 2 into it, and you can play games like Mario's Tennis, Wario Land, Red Alarm. They're eventually gonna have all of the Virtual Boy games in there. Also very happy to see all these classic games being added to Nintendo Switch Online. But maybe the best surprise of the Direct was the announcement of a brand new Fire Emblem game called Fortune's Weave. It features an ancient Rome vibe, and there's some buzz that it might be tied to Three Houses. I don't know for sure. It does look fantastic either way. Can't wait for that one. So pretty damn solid. I'm giving the Nintendo Direct an 8 out of 10. Man, I was so busy this week. There are so many things to play and see and do right now. We are in the thick of it. It is totally Gamefalange season. I'll be back next week with a whole bunch of new reviews for you in a new episode of Reviews on the Run. Thanks for hitting that subscribe button. Thanks for hitting that thumbs up if you dug the video. We will see you next time. And until then, play forever.